6 minutes is my record. You ready, Freddie?
You're ready.
Okay. Let's call this meeting to order. It's the regular meeting of the City of Osage Beach Planning and Zoning Commission on August 13th. Let's start with roll call. Well,
I'm sorry.
it's going to be roll call and then pledge of allegiance.
I'm trying. Hold on, give me a second.
You want me to pledge allegiance first?
Yeah. Chairman Evan,
Here.
Chad House,
Here.
Bill Mackey. Here. Mayor Harmison,
Here.
Chad Carlson,
Here.
Tony Stewart,
Here.
Alan Blair,
Here.
Angie Schuster,
Here.
Bill Morgan,
Here.
and Alderman Osteen.
Not here. We need to approve the minutes from the June 11th, 2024 meeting. Are there any comments or questions or changes?
I will make a motion to approve.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I'm not going to read our explanation of what the Planning and Zoning Committee does tonight, if that's okay with everybody. The first order of business is rezoning case 424, Topsider LLC, Topsider Condominiums LLC for a recommendation to amend their existing PUD. Carrie?
Yes, Mayor Ebling, members of the commission. So last time we talked about Topsider, and not everybody here, I guess, got to talk about Topsider the first time. We sent this to the Board of Aldermen with their request for an additional 7 units in their existing buildings, with taking away ½ acre of property from the commercial site. And we sent that to the Board of Aldermen with a recommendation to approve. And from that, the Board of Aldermen wasn't really happy with the idea of removing the existing ½ acre from the commercial piece, so they denied that request at the time. So what the applicant has done is they have gone and purchased an additional 2.28 acres, which is the property located between Topsider Condominiums Development and McField Road. Some of you may know it better as the property that goes up to the old AT&T building, that yellow brick building that's been there and forever. And the basics of it is their ideology is now to add that to the commercial area, therefore providing plenty of property for the hotel that we have required and the restaurant that we have required. Along with that, it probably or could at least provide the opportunity for some more commercial or retail development outside of what we are requiring. And if you looked at what my PUD layout has now that differs from what we had before, now it has prohibited uses. And I'm not going to run through all of those things, but the basics of what we're trying to do is create the uses that we have, which we know will be Topsider condominiums. We'll have the hotel and we'll have the sit-down restaurant, and we want any uses that go along with that to be accessory to that development as an overall development. Okay, so any uses that go in there will be harmonious with what is in there and add to the development by way of sales tax income. We'll also add to the property values of both the condos and the hotel by way of providing services or retail aspects to those property owners or visitors on that piece of property. You know, the basics of the situation is, you know, it was very understood what the Board of Aldermen was saying, what their concerns were. You know, the applicants themselves made a very good faith effort in putting the additional money on the requirement. And so what we have is, and the changes that I want to bring to the Planning Commission's attention as it pertains to the required uses. If you remember before, it was a 72-unit hotel. We have moved that down to actually a 60-room minimum hotel, so we can have 100 units as it goes. But one of the things that we're seeing currently is a desire to put in hotels that have larger amount of suite units, which obviously take more square footage per unit than what a standard hotel. So what we don't want to do is put a requirement in there that keeps a higher end hotel that wants to do more or all suite units. And so we moved that down to 60. If you remember what the required restaurant had was a 250 seat restaurant, sit-down restaurant at the time. And what we've done there is we've reduced that minimum to 150 because after COVID and some of the things that we've gone through, the minimum successful number of seats for a restaurant to keep it in business now has gone from the 200 range down to 150. We don't want to require them to have a number of seats that is going to upfront make them not be able to be successful. And what that also does is that also will reduce their parking facility, which will make it an opportunity to use the rest of that property for a greater and better use for the city. As I said, we are controlling the C1 property itself, the future uses. We're saying that you can have a restaurant. We've defined the restaurant as it is here. We're not saying you can't have a fast food restaurant or a Jersey Mike's or something like that. You just can't use that as the sit-down restaurant. So the basics of it is in order for there to be any other uses that would fit that other permitted uses within the C1 property part of our requirement, we have to have the hotel and the restaurant at minimum under construction so that we know that their site areas are established for them. We don't want to allow a use to come in, it get put in there, and then all of a sudden now we don't have enough room for what our required and primary uses are. So that's that. The prohibited uses, I think, is pretty well understandable in that we don't want any uses that are non-sales tax, producing. That doesn't make sense. And we also don't want any uses that don't make sense to the development that we're trying to establish for both the property owners, for the condos, the hotel, and the restaurant. If you have any questions about those, the majority of those prohibited uses are uses that we use within TIFs at this point. I know that we don't look at TIFs as a group, but the basics of a tax increment financing is what we want to make sure of, is that we don't establish uses in TIFs that, basically fight with the other TIFs that we have in town, because the basics of that is you tend to make all of your developments struggle to, be successful. That's what the prohibited uses are. We've added a few other ones, other uses such as the piercing and tattoo shop, that type of thing. Doesn't necessarily fit into that development in itself. But if you have any questions about that, I would be happy to look at those with you. But the basics of it is, the construction, bulk, kite area, public facilities, access can either be from Osage Beach Parkway, but there is the opportunity for a secondary access off of McField. When we do the McField access, if there is one of the things that we'll have to have done is the engineers take a look at it to make sure that it's got the capacity to handle whatever might go in there. And if they have to rebuild the access from Osage Beach Parkway onto McField into this property, then they'll be required to do so. Exterior lighting is typically the same. All lighting would be pointed inward into the property to not affect surrounding properties, especially residential. Signage will be required to meet our sign code. And then maintenance of open space and common area will be handled by the developer or the property owner if they do sell the lots. And so with that, I would give this to you with a recommendation to approve with the required uses, the permitted uses within the C1 area, and the prohibited uses along with all of the other requirements.
It doesn't seem like the applicant or representative are here, so I won't ask
ma'am.
them if they want to speak. Are there any questions from the commissioners for legal or
What was the
staff?
number of rooms prior to the reducing to 60? Just to make sure.
72. So when they made their initial application, they had a number of hotels that were interested in that spot. And then COVID and everything else happened, which completely changed the outlook of the property. But they were they had a number of 70 to 72 unit efficiency hotels that were looking at that location.
I ask a question? Is there a time component, like from when they finish the condominium part to when they need to have completion of restaurant or?
There is not, and here's the reason why. TIFs have a time component because we're putting public dollars into those developments. This is a PUD, so it's all land use. There is no public money going into the development of this, so they have their time as it pertains to the demand for the property to get it done. So what I would tell you is it may never develop. We believe it will because it's a pretty hot piece of property.
Yeah.
It will.
But, you know, there is a chance, like every other piece of commercial property, the give and take in this is that they get their additional units and the city is able to control a bit of the type of land use that goes in there. So, for instance, we won't have any storage units go up there that won't make any sales tax and also won't look real good on that piece of property. So that's the give and take of a PUD of this type.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Comments? I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
A motion to approve
To approve.
as presented? Okay. And we have a second?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to do a roll call vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Now she has to go back and find her list.
yeah.
Chad Carlson.
Yes.
Bill Hunter.
Yes.
Tony Stewart.
Yes.
Karen Armisen.
Yes.
Susan Everly.
Yes?
Angie Schuster.
Yes.
Chad Cowles.
Yes.
Alan Blair.
Yes.
Bill Knightly.
Yes.
Alderman Osteen.
Okay, motion passes. Are there any reports or anything you want to go over
Well,
with us?
the only
additionally,
thing that I
Carrie?
have for you tonight is the introduction of our new city administrator. This is Devin Lake. She comes to us from Sedalia, but by way of Lincoln area, and is going to make her home some of these days in Cross Timbers. So those of you who've been down here know that's in the sticks. So, but we welcome her. She won't always be at our meetings unless she wants to keep tabs on me, which in that case she might be at all the meetings. But other than that, I welcome you to introduce yourselves to her, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Feel free.
Still. 13 minutes.
It's not my fastest, but it's
Short and sweet, I like it. Somewhere along the line, I got
Angie, how are you?
Nice to meet you. How are you?